Are you ready for one last horrifying video of the year? Well, today we're talking about dark fantasy, what it is and how to write it. Dark fantasy is a subgenre of fantasy. It incorporates the more disturbing and frightening elements of fantasy. It often combines many elements of horror and has a much darker tone than fantasy, with more horror and gloom and dread. The difference between horror and dark fantasy being dark fantasy borrows elements of horror, but with the supernatural characters or magic or what have you. So hello friends, welcome back to another video. If you are new here, I'm Megan, and here we talk about all things books, writing, grammar, and more. If you haven't already, please make sure to give this video a like. It helps out my channel a ton. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. So the most important thing when writing dark fantasy is to get that dark tone. Think of darkness. It's scary, it's frightening because it's unknown. The unknown can be very, very scary. Some great examples of dark fantasy would be Supernatural, Game of Thrones, and The Witcher. But don't confuse darkness with death. Some of the scariest books, movies, and TV shows out there are dark fantasy or horror that actually feature no death whatsoever. Now, some of the scariest movies that I've ever seen actually do not include death, but they are absolutely horrifying. Those would be the movie 1408, Signs, and one of the scariest movies that I feel I've ever seen, The Conjuring. These movies are absolutely terrifying, and they keep you on your toes with anticipation, and I think we can all agree there's definitely horror in these movies, but go back and watch them. There's not actually death, so darkness does not have to equal death. Darkness also does not have to have an age limit. You can have dark fantasy for children. Anyone else remember this horrifying feature film as a child? Coraline was one of the scariest movies I ever saw as a kid, and it does count as a dark fantasy. So how do we write darkness into fantasy so that it becomes dark fantasy? Well, one of the first things that you can do is flip tropes on their head. Again, the unknown and the unexpected can be terrifying. So taking some of these tropes that people think that they know how they end and totally flipping them will keep your readers guessing, which keeps them high tension, horror, terrified. Play with the reader's emotions. You need to give them calm among the storm. There is no light without darkness or goodness without bad. These things need to go together. We need both the light and the dark for the darkness to come out even more. Some of my favorite ways to do that are cinnamon roll characters. They are precious, they are goodness in all that is bad, and you just want to snuggle them and love them. And they're a great addition to dark fantasy because when you have these amazing goodness characters, it makes those bad characters seem even worse. Don't hold back. If you want to write dark fantasy, but you think you might be going a little too far, just know that your readers are expecting it. Again, this is dark fantasy, horror, terrifying, the disturbing and darkness of everything. So don't be afraid to let yourself loose. Try not to hold back. If you're going to hold back, then it's probably not dark fantasy. So go ahead and write what you want to write and then get feedback. Know how the human mind works. Each of your characters would react to situations in completely different ways. So try to dive into that and see, how would my male MC handle the situation versus my female MC, or the side character, or the old man versus the young child. They're all going to react to situations in completely different ways. So knowing how the mind works and what people would do in different situations not only adds realism to your story, but it does add that darkness, because your readers are only going to connect with maybe one or two of these reactions. So if you're getting all different reactions, it's going to add to the frustration and the tension. Play off of your own fears. Now, don't do self-inserting where everything is just about you and what you like or you don't like, but if you can get yourself scared in your own story, then you're going to get other people scared. So many people are going to share the same fears as you. That's why in a lot of these fantasies, there are giant spiders everywhere. I feel like every time I watch a fantasy movie or TV show or read a fantasy book, there's like giant spiders everywhere. That's gonna work for a lot of people. So go ahead, dig deep. What are you afraid of? And see how you can put it on the page and make it terrifying. Throw in your morally gray characters. They are going to thrive in the dark fantasy world. The constant pull between good and evil will bring the dark and disturbing to an entirely new level. Not knowing the decisions people are going to make can also be absolutely horrifying. And listen to your readers. Readers out there are dying to see some of their favorite tropes in novels. Tropes that they love that aren't overused again and again and again and again in these dark fantasy novels. So comb through Facebook groups, Reddit, your own social media accounts, and see what your readers are wanting to see in novels. Go through those and see if there's any that you love or you know would totally work in your story. This will give your readers something new and unexpected and something that you know they'll love. And again, back to my first point, flip it on its head and see what happens. So that's what I have for you today, getting into dark fantasy and my best tips for writing dark fantasy. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more bookish and writing related videos. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.